All right, guys, so today I'm actually going to be talking about my first pregnancy. I've had a lot of requests for my pregnancy stories, and I thought, you know what, I should just film it. I've been kind of dreading it because, one, because I don't have the greatest memory, two, because I've just been busy lately. So I decided, you know what, I'm almost, it's almost to that time of the month. So my face is puffy, I'm breaking out, and I was gonna do my makeup first, and I just thought, you know what, no, I'm just gonna run outside. I'm actually sitting in my car right now. I thought it might help with just good lighting and keeping the sound kind of contained. I've noticed that when I film things while my kids are napping, the sound of my voice carries really easily throughout the house, and it kind of keeps them awake, especially my older son. So I'm trying it in the car right now to see if it will be a little better and also not keep my kids awake. So yeah, part of the reason I've been kind of dreading trying to talk about my pregnancy at 19 is there were some very rough parts of it, and also it's kind of a story that most of my friends and family have never heard before or don't know about, and it's just kind of, I don't know, I don't think cringy is the right word, but yeah, it's kind of cringy, and I'm kind of scared to talk about it because I feel like, I don't know, maybe I would sound like a bad mom, or I don't know, but I think regardless, I'm just gonna go ahead and share it, and if I don't like how it comes out, then I might just, scrap this whole video idea and just throw it out the window. But yeah, so there's definitely some good parts and some bad parts to my story of my first pregnancy. So I got pregnant at 19, and long story short, we were planning on waiting to get pregnant. We were planning on waiting at least till I was 25. And I want to say right from the beginning, if anyone, clicks off super soon, which I wouldn't blame you, but I just wanted to say really quick, even though the kind of the theme throughout the story is going to be kind of like hardship and how hard it was, I want you to know that without a doubt in my mind, getting pregnant at 19 was literally the single best thing, like the most life-changing thing that ever happened to us during our marriage. So many things happened because of getting pregnant then. And although when I got pregnant, it was not planned, it wasn't, something we did on purpose, it was going to turn out to be literally the most life-changing aspect of our entire lives together, meaning my husband and I. That was the turning point, and a turning point in a lot of ways that I will never, ever tell you guys about or be able to explain to you, because it really was, I'm trying to think of how to explain this to you guys without giving too much away, because there is a huge chunk of my life and a huge part of my life behind the scenes that I'll never be able to talk about, that I will never talk about, that I will never talk about, because it has to do with outside sources that just are not going to be ever included. But I want to say, yeah, definitely from the beginning, I just want to say, this pregnancy and just the pregnancy alone changed our lives so much. And the son that we received from this pregnancy is literally, he is an angel. And of course, his brother is an angel too. Neither of my kids are more important or more special than the other, but it was without a doubt the best thing that ever happened to us, specifically that first pregnancy. But yes, my first pregnancy was not planned. We were waiting. We wanted to wait until I was 25. And we had already talked about it. If it happens sooner, it happens sooner. These kind of things happen all the time. And yeah, I ended up having a really serious medical condition that I had to go on some really strong antibiotics for. When I was 19, I was working at Aldi when I took the antibiotics, and then I was actually working as a waitress the month after that, and I found out I was pregnant. And genuinely, I thought my life was over. And I will say I had a very poor view on children young in marriage. And I think it's definitely something that I've learned or have kind of realized over the years, this is something that my generation has been taught. Even though I come from a large family, I am one of 13 siblings, and I love all my siblings, and I loved our family. And, you know, I had no problem with the amount of kids my mom had. I had no problem with the fact that she had kids super young. But I think our culture has successfully scared all of us into thinking that pregnancy and children are the worst thing that could ever happen to you. And I really thought that's what had happened. Like, I really thought my life was over, and I was terrified. I did not feel ready. I didn't feel smart enough. I didn't feel educated enough. I had very low self-esteem. In the beginning of our marriage, I had very low self-esteem. And this was for many reasons, many reasons. And there were people in my life that greatly affected this. My husband was not one of them. He was truly an angel, and he was the one of the biggest people that's helped me get my confidence back. But also, I think that to get your confidence back, you know what, guys, honestly, I could go on and on. I rabbit trail way too much, and that's something I've been really trying to work on with my videos, because I have to end up editing so much out. So we're going to go back to the original story. So I was working at Aldi, had this really serious medical issue, had to go on some extremely strong antibiotics. And then I think it was 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. So the next month is when I conceived. And then the month after that, my period was late. And I never had a late period. My period was every 28 days on the dot. So when my period was 4 days late, I already knew. And I took a pregnancy test, and sure enough, I was pregnant. So I was really upset, and I cried about it a lot. And my husband tried to comfort me, but he was also kind of upset. And we were definitely excited, but more scared than excited. I don't think anyone who's ever gotten pregnant hasn't had at least a tiny bit amount of excitement. But I was far, far more scared and upset than I was excited. So basically right away, I started getting morning sickness. Sorry if I'm like looking off in the distance and stuff. I'm trying to remember all the details. I've watched a lot of teen mom pregnancies. That was one of the first things I started doing when I found out I was pregnant. I started watching tons and tons of YouTube videos on teen moms and teen pregnancy, because as a 19-year-old woman who was pregnant, I didn't even have any friends who were married yet. I had one friend that was married, but she lived in Alaska. So I didn't even have friends who were married yet, let alone friends who were pregnant yet. And that was really hard. That was one of the hardest parts. And it was really lonely. It was really lonely, and that was probably the hardest part, feeling like I was doing it alone and on my own. And obviously my husband was there, but I knew it was going to be different for him. He was going to be leaving every day for work. He was, not the one that would be raising the kid. That was on me. And that was really scary to me. And I wish if I could go back in time, I wish I could give myself a hug and just say it's going to be okay. Because if you are, I remember how scared I was and how alone I felt. And I was so scared that I was a bad mom. And I felt like the fact that I was not super excited and the fact that I was scared, I felt like that made me a bad mom. So I want to say, if you are scared of pregnancy, or if you're pregnant and you're scared, I wish I could give you a hug and tell you it's going to be okay. And it's going to be the best thing that ever happens to you. And don't be scared to reach out to others. You're not a bad mom. I really didn't think I was going to be getting so emotional, but honestly, guys, I think I'm going to leave this on camera because, and this is why I said in the beginning, this is a story I've been dreading, because it's very, very raw for me. And this is kind of a big deal for me to be sharing this. And it's not something that most people know about me. And there's a lot of aspects of my life that I've kept secret and I've kept hidden because I'm scared of weakness and I'm scared of showing weakness to others. But, as moms and as women, we to be there for each other. We need to share our struggles. And I think that really does help that helps us. And my friends that have been vulnerable with me, my mom friends that have been vulnerable with me and not scared to cry and not scared to tell me the hard parts, those have been the people that have changed my life. Those are the people that have helped me and uplifted me. I've had a couple mom friends or friends in general that tried to pretend like they had their life all together, that they were perfect, that they never messed up, they always knew better than me, they always knew the right thing to do, the right thing to say. And those friendships were the most detrimental friendships in my entire life. And I never want my social media to be fake. I never want you guys to think that I'm perfect. And that's part of the reason why I'm not wearing makeup today. I know I don't look the best. I know I'm kind of bloated right now. I know that my eyes are kind of puffy and they look small and my lips are like kind of dry and pale, but my nails aren't done. I don't even have my wedding ring on, so but I just want you guys to know that it's okay not to be perfect, and that doesn't make you a bad mom. And I think that was the scariest thing for me being 19-year-old is I saw all my flaws. I've always been a very, very self-aware person. I know my flaws and I know my weaknesses. And I've had many people try to throw stuff in my face or tell me you're this or you're that. And I don't think they realize that if they say something that's true, in my head, I'm just like, yeah. And it doesn't bother me that you just tried to insult me because I already knew that. Or if you try to tell me something to insult me, but I know it's not true, it's not going to bother me. And that's why, I have so many people ask me how I handle the hate comments. And it's like, if you're going to try to throw something at me that isn't true, it doesn't bother me because I know it's not true. I'm not going to doubt myself. But we're getting off subject again, per usual. So, yeah, honestly, guys, it was rough. The beginning, basically my entire pregnancy was rough. And by far the hardest part was the mental hurdle and just feeling like I already felt like a failure. Like the second I got pregnant, I was like, I am not ready to be a mother. And I convinced myself I wasn't ready. I convinced myself I was going to fail. I was going to be terrible at it, that I was going to be the worst mom ever. That airplane is kind of killing the vibe. Guys, I'm going to be crying so much. And, honestly, I probably shouldn't be filming this right before, my time of the month because that's going to make me extra emotional. But we're just going to keep going. I'm going to leave this all in because I just want you guys to be here. And honestly, I wish I had this video to watch when I was 19. I wish I had a friend. I wish I had a friend who had been honest and who hadn't, tried to make me think they were so perfect and had all the answers. I wish I had someone that could have been vulnerable with me, who could have told me that it was going to be okay and that they were rooting for me and that I was going to be an awesome mom. Like, I wish I had that. And I did have my husband, but again, I just felt different, and we were pretty newly married, and we were not as close as we are now. Now that we've been married almost 5 years, marriage gets better every day, every month, every year, and we are so close. And we were close, but it just wasn't the same, and I kept a lot inside. And that was something I definitely learned over the first couple years of marriage, was to talk to him more. But I kept a lot inside. I kept a lot hidden from everyone. And you'd think like, oh, you had a mom that did the same thing as you. She got pregnant super young and she had 13 kids. Like, she had all the answers for you. And I'm sure she did have a lot of answers, and I wish I had been brave enough to ask her, questions and open up. And I was too scared to open up in front of anyone. And the hard part is the hardest part out of this whole story, and this is a situation I'm not going to talk about, but there was a couple people that I really opened up to and trusted, and they later ended up telling me that I had failed as a wife and failed as a mother, that I neglected my son. And it was another whole terrible situation that really solidified all the fears I already had. And that didn't happen until after I had him, but it added so much trauma on top of what had already been dealing with. And you know, that was hard. My neighbor's walking outside, so I'm just gonna look in this direction. Normally I'm not shy when people see me recording, but when I'm like crying and having a mental breakdown, that's a little bit of a different story. So we're just gonna like, yeah. Okay, guys, we are gonna try to get through the rest of this without crying because this is ridiculous. And I was already feeling self-conscious about my giant puppy face, and now it's even more giant and more puppy. The problem with me is once I start crying, I can't stop. Like, I genuinely can't stop. So we're starting off on a really bad note, but we're gonna keep going, guys. We gotta keep going. So I promise you this story has a good ending, and I had a super easy birth, which I'm super excited to talk about because that is my favorite part of the whole story. And that was when things really started going up. So we're getting ourselves under control here. So yeah, honestly, guys, the pregnancy part was rough, and there was a lot of added stressors to it. I had a lot of body dysmorphia, and at the time I was very obsessed with being skinny. I thought it was just the most important thing in my life, and I had a friend that convinced me it was the most important thing in life, and it was just, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say convinced me because I was also, I'm sure, a bad influence on her, but she was someone that I really looked up to, and we both kind of like went off of each other, I guess, and we both were like, oh my goodness, it's so important. But she was definitely kind of the one, because I was more kind of on the end of like, oh, I want to stay skinny and like have a good body, but like, you know, Jake will love me anyway, like he'll love me if I'm fat, so it doesn't matter. And she was like, she would say, oh, you know, our husbands don't think we're perfect, even if they say we are. And yeah, just super, super toxic sayings, toxic things that really got inside my head. So that also added to the stress of being pregnant, because I gained weight very easily. And I gained weight very easily during my pregnancy. And even though I ate extremely healthy and tried to work out every day, go on walks, stay fit, I gained at least 40 pounds, if not more. And that was difficult, just, you know, mentally, especially when that's like one of the most important things in your life is not gaining too much weight, which unfortunately it was at the time, very extremely important to me. And I think honestly most of my pregnancy was kind of a blur. I started getting morning sickness at 6 weeks, 6 weeks into my pregnancy, and I stopped working. I tried at least one business venture while I was pregnant. I tried like an MLM, and I'm personally like super anti MLM actually now because of my experience with it. And there might be like, you might be like, I know this amazing one, and it could be amazing and it could be so different than the one that I was part of. But yeah, that was just, I just like, as soon as I basically started it, I realized how terrible and how toxic it was. And so I stopped doing that. So most of my pregnancy literally consisted of me being bedridden. I was exhausted. I think I was also depressed a lot of it, which added exhaustion and added extra mental stress, because I just felt like, you know, like I said earlier, I already felt like I was a failure before I even like had the baby. Like I just felt like I was already a failure. I was already such a terrible example. How could I possibly raise a child? I was a child myself. And again, it kind of goes back to how our culture has really convinced us that you can't be a good parent as a young person and that you will fail. And I think that was a huge part of it, was just like constantly being bombarded with like, you have to wait till you're older till you get pregnant. If you have kids young, it'll ruin your life. And that's something I talk about a lot on my Instagram, about how I don't regret getting married young and having kids young. And people will comment all the time or DM me and be like, why do you talk about this so much? It's all you talk about. And I'll tell people it's because our culture constantly pushes the opposite narrative. It says that having kids young will ruin your life, and it didn't, and it doesn't. And to anyone who says that's not true, our culture doesn't push that narrative, it absolutely does. And it affected me so much. And I just feel so sad for 19-year-old me. I really do. Like, 19-year-old me was just my worst version. Not my worst version as in being a bad person, because I was trying to be a good person. I was trying to be a good mother and wife and all these things. But you know what I mean? It was a rough time. So, I'm trying to think of where to go from there. So, you know, I tried to be healthy, and I ate really healthy. I ate really good, and I just constantly felt guilt all the time. And I think that was the hardest part. I felt guilt for not cleaning the house enough. I felt guilt for not making my husband all his meals for work. I felt guilt because I felt like it was my fault that we got pregnant, and I should have been smarter, and I should have done things differently. And I felt guilt because I thought there was even a point I thought God was punishing me. And I couldn't even think, like, I've always been such a good girl that I was like, what did I possibly do that God could be punishing me for? And, you know, there was just so much guilt, so much anxiety, so much depression. And, you know, I'm sure a big part of that was just pregnancy hormones, because if you've been pregnant before, you know, pregnancy hormones are crazy. They're like nothing you've ever experienced before. And they add, you know, a lot of things. And I think one of definitely the most detrimental things I did during this pregnancy was not open up to anyone. And, you know, like I said, I opened up a little bit to a couple people, and that was the worst. The worst and best decision I ever made, because ultimately that also came to good. And I think that everything that happens in our lives, especially as a Christian, is going to end up for good, especially if you are trusting God. And there's Bible verses to back me up. I know there's Bible verses that talk about how God uses everything for good, and that's so true. I definitely agree with that 100%, because the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life have brought me to the best destinations. And that sounds like some cheesy, corny quote, but I seriously mean it. Like, every time I've gone through something insanely hard, it has brought me to like the best place. It has brought me so much closer to God. And that was something that definitely happened with this pregnancy, is that it brought me a lot closer to God. I was really just spending a lot of time in prayer and spending a lot of time in thought. And yeah, that's kind of how, you know, the rest of my pregnancy went. And over time, my husband and I did get more and more excited for the baby. I think towards the end of my pregnancy, I was definitely a lot more excited to meet my baby. I was definitely excited to be done being pregnant. I was, you know, I've never enjoyed being pregnant. I don't like pregnancy. And some women will be horrified to hear me say that, but I am here to tell you, if you don't like pregnancy, it's okay. It's okay to hate pregnancy, because I hate pregnancy, and I think it's totally okay to say that. There's nothing wrong with disliking pregnancy. Sometimes it just is not great. My favorite part was feeling the baby kicking. I felt him kicking around 20 weeks. Oh, and we also found out his gender at 20 weeks. And that was one of my best memories of the whole pregnancy. We had a gender reveal party. I was really into cake decorating at the time. That's actually when I started my Instagram page that you now know as Liz Daily, but back then it was called Sweet Sweet Treats. I wanted to call it like a bunch of other names, but they were all taken, and it was the only one that wasn't taken. So I called it Sweet Sweet Treats. It was all about cake decorating. I just remembered that was my other business ventures. I wanted to make it big on Instagram, and I wanted to be like this cool cake decorating person. And that's another thing that I guess I kind of forgot to mention, is that was a huge baking and cooking became a huge way for me to deal with my depression during that pregnancy, and to just kind of deal with the hopelessness of thinking like, oh, my life is over and I'm gonna have kids, my body's gonna be ruined, I'm never gonna have fun again, I'm never gonna have my own life, I'm never gonna have a business. Like, I had all these terrible thoughts and doubts, and I was just so positive my life was just over, and you know, from now on I was just gonna be like a boring mom stuck at home, never get to do anything ever again. You know, my business ideas just had gone all down the toilet, all down the drain. I was just done. And baking was literally my therapy during that time. I should have gotten real therapy. But I was baking instead, and that was where this whole thing started. So if you haven't found my Instagram yet, you can actually go on my Instagram and find all my old posts too. If you scroll to the very end, you'll see all my old cake decorating and baking posts, because that used to be all my page was about. So yeah, we found out the gender. We found out it was a boy. We went for our 20-week ultrasound, and it was a really special moment finding out. One, we were really excited we were not having twins. That was a big fear of ours, is that we were having twins. And I was already feeling like such a failure as a mom of one. I could not imagine being a mom of two. So we found out it was a boy, and we both wanted a boy. I almost forgot how badly we both wanted a boy. I wanted a boy and my husband wanted a boy really bad. So we were so excited to find out we had a boy. I was crying, and I don't think my husband cried at all, but he doesn't cry over anything. I've literally seen him cry maybe 5 times in the past 5 years of being married. It's crazy. He does not cry, which is hilarious because I'm the opposite. I'm crying like every 3 seconds, but we balance each other out, you know? But yeah, we found out we were having a boy. So we had a gender reveal party for both of our families. And I made a cake, and the inside of the cake was the gender, so obviously it was blue. And one of my regrets is that I didn't record the moment that everyone found out, and I will always remember it, because we cut the cake, and so my husband has 9 siblings and I have 12 siblings. So we have big families, and our grandparents were there and everything. And it was just close family. It was just close family. It was just our, immediate families and our grandparents or whatever. But we cut the cake and everyone was silent. And if you are a part of big families like that, there's never silence. And they were just silent. And then we, pulled the piece of cake out, and everyone just started cheering and congratulating us. And we were so excited about having a boy. It was really cool seeing them also being excited for us. It was a really good moment for me, and it was a really exciting moment. So that was really awesome and a really good memory for me. And I do have some really good memories of that pregnancy. It was definitely hard. That was the hardest 9 months / the hardest year of my life for so many reasons. And so many reasons that I will never, ever talk about on social media. Like I already explained earlier, there's a lot of aspects of my life that have been really hard that I will never talk about. And, you're just going to have to be okay with that. And you're going to have to be okay with missing certain stories and stuff. But there were a lot of outside aspects that made that very difficult and made that pregnancy very difficult. So, yeah, that was a big highlight, letting everyone know that we were having a boy. We were really excited we were having a boy. He was going to be a junior, so he has the same name that my husband has. And that was my idea. I always wanted to have a junior. Even before I met my husband, I was like, okay, as long as I don't hate my husband's name, I want our firstborn son to have his name. So I was really excited about that. And my husband's name is Jacob, and I love the name Jacob. So I was really excited to have another Jacob. So after that, I think after the gender reveal party, that was also kind of when I started baking and cooking and using that as a creative outlet. And I was making all these things and trying to take all these pictures and make my Instagram posts and go viral. And I did not go viral. I did get up to 16,000 followers on Instagram, which was pretty big, which was, that was actually a really big pride moment for me. And I actually had a few people that were like, you bought your followers. And I never bought a single follower. And that was such a huge pride moment for me. I wasn't even mad that there was a couple of people in my life who told me, oh, you for sure, but I know you bought followers. And it was such a compliment to me that they thought it was such a big deal that they were sure I would have had to have bought followers. So that was really cool for me. And like I said earlier, I struggled with self-esteem at the time. So having something that people were proud of me for was really cool. And I never made a cent on Instagram. That was like the whole reason I started Instagram, was to turn it into a business and make money from it. I've always been extremely entrepreneurial, and yeah, I did not ever make a cent with it. And then later, obviously, it turned into what it is now, and but we're not even going to get into that. So, I was baking and cooking a lot, and towards the end of my pregnancy, I really had a lot, I struggled with a lot of just aches and pains, just feeling really tired all the time. I was, again, bedridden a lot. It was difficult. And at the time, my husband didn't really understand that I needed help. And there was outside sources that were telling him that I was not good enough, I was not doing enough, and that they were telling him that I should be doing better and I should be doing more. And it added a lot of stress. But that didn't really negatively affect our marriage. My husband's always been a really good person. And despite having people telling him these things, I know he had his doubts, and he was helping me. He was helping me a lot, just not to the extent that he helps me now, and that he helped me with my second pregnancy, because taking a step back from these bad influences in our lives, and the bad influence that was in his life that was telling him that I wasn't, doing enough, and that I was lazy and all these other things. That was a difficult aspect, because I wasn't getting the help I needed, and I didn't understand why, but also we weren't as good with communication. And trust me when I say it was not long after I had the baby. Honestly, it's hard to talk about this. It's hard to talk about it because there's so much I can't say and I won't say. And I have already talked to my husband about what I'm going to share on social media about this whole kind of these outside influences and stuff. And he's like, just tell it all. And I'm like, no, definitely not. But I am going to share parts of it because I think that can resonate with you guys, and because I just want you guys to know that it's going to be okay. And if you have influences like that, or if your husband has influences like that, it's going to be okay. And it is part of my story, whether I like it or not. And I don't want to share, I would love to not share any of it, but it did highly, highly affect the whole story. So it does have to be included a little bit. But so that's just kind of how that is. And my husband and I are okay with the amount that I'm going to talk about it, but it's never going to be more. And don't try to guess or ask questions or, anything like that. That's not helpful. And ultimately, these people, although they negatively affected us at the time, have made our marriage stronger, made our family stronger, made me stronger, and turned me into the person I am today, and turned my husband into the person he is today. And it has greatly positively affected our lives in so many ways. So towards the end of my pregnancy, I wasn't really doing great. I was bedridden a lot. I was excited, but I was nervous. I was really scared for childbirth. And that was I kind of forgot that was one of my biggest fears during my pregnancy, was just fearing childbirth. And right from the beginning, I already knew I wanted to have a hospital birth in case. I was intrigued by home birth, and I'll touch on that a lot more in my second pregnancy. I'll touch on that more in my second pregnancy. But I was extremely intrigued by home birth, but I just thought, for my first one, I wanted to do it at a hospital, and I kind of wanted to not get the epidural. I would say, oh, I'm probably not going to get it, but I think I knew I was going to get it. Maybe I didn't know. I really didn't know what to expect. And if you haven't gone through childbirth yet, you can't know what to expect because it's different for everyone. So even hearing someone's story, you can hear someone's horror story about, this terrible labor and 24-hour labor and all these horrible things that happened to them. And then you can hear someone else tell their story about how it wasn't that bad, didn't barely hurt, they didn't need the epidural, they had a home birth, they had a free birth. Which free birth is a whole nother crazy aspect of going beyond home birth, which I think is super cool and amazing. But yeah, so I was really terrified of birth, but when it started getting close, the closer I got to reaching my due date, the closer or the less I was scared of birth, because I just wanted to get it done. And I just thought, you know what, if it hurts a lot, I will just get the epidural, and no matter what happens, it's going to be over at some point. I have to have the baby at some point. and then it's done. So my best friend came to visit me from Minnesota, and she was staying for about a week, and I told her, and at the time I had just hit 37 weeks. I think she came like a day or two after I hit 37 weeks, and I told her, and it was winter, or no, it wasn't winter, but it was April, so it was very cold, so I couldn't really go outside and walk, and I was not able to work out at the time. I was just way too bedridden. So I told her, when you come to visit, we're going to do all this mall shopping. We're going to have such a fun girls' day. We're going to go out to eat. We're going to get Auntie Anne pretzel bites. Because my entire pregnancy, I literally ate so clean and so healthy. So healthy. And I never ate sugar. I never ate dairy. I never ate processed foods. So I was like, you know what? Like, we're going to have fun. We're going to get like Auntie Annie's pretzels at the mall. And I was so excited about it. And we had a really fun day. The first day she came to visit, we walked around the mall probably, I don't know, it was all day. It was all day. So probably 6 to 8 hours of just walking. I mean, maybe not 8. I don't know, guys. And we went to the Cheesecake Factory. And we got pasta, and it was amazing. And I think we got Cinnabons. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, it was her first time getting a Cinnabon. And we might have gotten Auntie Annie's pretzels too. I don't remember what we got, but I just remember it was a really fun, awesome day. And the next day I was like, okay, we have to go walk again. Like, because I wanted to put myself into labor, if I didn't already make that obvious. I wanted to put, go into labor. And one thing I had heard is that they say during pregnancy, you shouldn't work out like extremely harder than normal, or you shouldn't do like extremely hard physical activities that you're not used to. And because I was basically bedridden my entire pregnancy, I thought, okay, if I'm walking a ton, that'll put me into labor. So the second day we only walked for 2 to 4 hours, and I was beat. I was exhausted. So we went home. I was so tired. We vegged on the couch. We were just like watching movies. And that evening, we said goodnight to my best friend. She was on the phone with her boyfriend in the basement. She was like video chatting him or something. And my husband and I were going to bed, and we like laid down, we turned the lights off, and all of a sudden we just heard this, like it sounded like that loud. And it came from inside my body. And like, I didn't know where. It happened. And it was actually terrifying. Like, it almost sounded like a tiny little bone crunching or something. Like, it was terrifying. And I was like, my jaw just dropped, and I like nudged my husband, like, did you hear that? And he goes, yeah. And we both were freaking out. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go to the hospital. Like, as scary or bad as it sounds, it almost sounded like, I don't even want to say it, but it sounded like his little something had broken. And so I stood up, and my water came gushing out. And okay, guys, from this point forward, it might be a little gruesome, but if your mom's like, it's not gruesome, so it's fine. But so my water came gushing out, and I was like, my water broke. That was the sound. My water broke. So we like ran to get my best friend. She has like some funny pictures and videos of me. I'll try to include them if I can figure out how, but I probably won't be able to figure out how, but I'll definitely include some pictures in my thumbnail. I wore the most hideous like shirt / nightgown thing to the hospital, but the last thing on my mind was aesthetics or how I looked. So there's kind of like a long story. No, not even a long story. There's a stupid story. Again, guys, there's a lot of aspects of my life you'll never know. So yeah, we'll just say that my labor progressed really quickly after my water broke. So we went to the hospital like half an hour later. And I think it took us about 20 minutes to drive to the hospital after 30 minutes. So it was probably like 45 minutes after my water broke that we were at the hospital, and they were like, yes, I was 3 or 4 centimeters dilated. And honestly, the rest of my birth was just really, it was over really quickly. And that was the easiest part of my entire pregnancy, was my birth story and the birth part. So some people would probably give you, have one YouTube story on their pregnancy, one YouTube story on their birth, but I'm just going to include it in here. This might be kind of a long video, but if you want to hear it, you just have to listen to one video, I guess. But yeah, so basically, I'm just trying to remember because it was over so quickly. I think in total, I was in active labor for like 5 to 7 hours. It was pretty short. I progressed really quickly. I got the epidural, which definitely slowed down the labor pains a lot. I think for 2 hours, I didn't progress after I got the epidural. So, I mean, basically before the epidural, I was just laboring, and I didn't know anything about breathing techniques. I didn't know anything about labor positions, and I knew the hospital I was going at didn't allow water births. And there was a lot that I hadn't looked into because I was scared to look into it, and I had already kind of decided I wasn't going to go the natural route. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to listen to whatever the doctors say. And I think kind of my mindset at the time, because I've heard a lot of pro hospital births and I've heard a lot of pro home birth stories, and I just thought, like, I'm just going to try, the hospital birth and see how that goes. And it wasn't like bad, but it wasn't great. And there's some parts of that I probably won't even talk about because I'm not really going to get into it. But for personal reasons, there's a lot of reasons that my third pregnancy or my third birth story, I want to be a home birth. So spoiler alert, my second birth story was also a hospital birth, but my third one, I really, right now, am 100% planning on doing at home. And no, I'm not pregnant, but we are planning on being pregnant somewhat soon. So just stay tuned for that, I guess. But yeah, so I just kind of did everything the doctors and nurses told me to do. And I've definitely seen a lot of things since then that definitely solidify the fact that I don't want to do it again. I don't think it was best for me. I don't think it was best for the hospital. I think there's a lot of things that are just typical hospital protocols that doctors and nurses are taught to do, but it's not necessarily best for the mother. It's not necessarily best for the baby. It's just what they do. They have certain things they do. That's how it gets done. And it's, yeah, I don't think it's the best. But all that to say, I got the epidural, slowed down the birth progress. And then basically my next memory after that was slowly progressing more and more. So with the epidural, you get this, it gets like put into your spine, which is really crazy. And there's a huge part of the reason why I don't want to ever do it again, because I did it with both births, and actually both births, it wasn't really effective. And to this day, I don't know if it's because I wasn't on a high enough dosage or if it didn't work on me, because some women, epidurals don't work on them. I know the epidural was working with my first birth. With my second birth, it kind of wasn't, and I'll explain that in my next, video on my next birth. But yeah, this is what I was gonna say. So they put it into your spine, but then there's like a button you can push, and they don't let you push the button too many times. But every like 30 minutes or something, you're allowed to push it again, and it gives you like another dose. Well, after my first dose, I never took another dose basically. And by the time I was ready to have the baby, I was like, I want another dose of it, because I could feel like I was like shaking. And I was like, you start shaking right before you have a baby because your body gets a huge rush of adrenaline that helps you, like, gives you the energy you need to push out a baby. But like every, contraction, it started getting a little more painful and a little more painful. And I was like, you know what? It's okay, because I wanted to feel pain and I wanted to feel myself having the baby. That was actually one of the reasons I didn't want to have an epidural, is I had heard some women say they had trouble pushing out the baby when they got an epidural because it took away all the pain and they didn't know when to push. So I wanted to feel when I was, I wanted to feel the urge to push. And that was something that actually never happened with my first birth. It did with my second though. I feel like I'm giving you guys too many spoiler alerts for my second birth story. You still have to watch it. Support me. I'm just kidding. You don't have to. But so it started hurting more and more. And then finally I was like, you know what? I can't take it anymore. I need more of the epidural. And the doctor literally came in just then, or he was already in. He was like, nope, it's time to push. You're ready to go. And I did not feel any urge to push whatsoever. And he was like, okay, just start pushing. And I pushed that baby out in like under 7 minutes. It was under 10 minutes for sure. But literally pushing the baby out was the easiest part of my entire pregnancy and birth and whatever. I just pushed. And I had a friend who told me, push like you're pooping. Like, that's the feeling. Like, that's what you need to do. You just push like you're pooping. And also something that the nurses and doctors told me, because I was like, like, ugh, and then I was like breathing out as I was pushing, and they were like, no, don't breathe out. Like, you need to hold your breath. So that was super weird to me because I was not expecting that. But like, you literally hold your breath as you're pushing. And that was the easiest part. I got the baby out. I felt him coming out of me. I felt that both times, which is like the weirdest experience. And it sounds creepy, but it's actually like really cool. And I think it's kind of your body. I think your body, like your brain knows it's a good thing because it's like you're about to meet your baby. So the scariest part out of my birth story is that he came out silent. And I instantly knew that was bad news. I started kind of panicking, and obviously, you know, that's a hard memory to relive. But I started panicking. And my husband right away was like, he distracted me, and it worked. And in hindsight, I can't even believe it worked. But he was like, hey, no. Hey, baby, like, look at me. Sorry, guys. It's hard to talk about. And also, I'm just so appreciative for my husband because he's always been there for me, and he's always been my rock. And I'm partially crying, like, happy tears because sometimes I forget these things, and then I just remember, like, how much he's been there for me. But I knew it was bad that he came out silent. And the doctors just kind of like whipped him away. He was still in the room, I believe. And I was kind of out of it because, you know, even though I had like such a fast and easy labor and birth, it still took it out of me. And I cannot imagine like pushing for 45 minutes because it literally wiped me out, pushing for 7 minutes. And I could not imagine any longer than that. But the baby came out, he was silent, and the doctors just kind of like whipped him away. And I was confused, but I was like really just not all there. And right away my husband was like, hey baby, look at me. And he was like kissing me, and he was like, you did such a great job. Like, I'm so proud of you. We have a baby now. And I don't know how long it took because I, was so out of it, but my baby did start crying. They were able to revive him. I don't even exactly know, because it wasn't until I left the hospital that I was like, hey babe, like, he came out not breathing. Like, wasn't that weird? Wasn't that not normal? And he was like, yeah, I was trying to distract you because like I thought our baby was gone, And so, yeah, I still don't really know. I don't know if the cord was wrapped around him. I don't know if he was just silent. Oh, and he was blue too. My mom was there for the birth, and she told me later he came out blue. I don't know. I didn't really see him. Like I said, my husband instantly distracted me, was like kissing me and touching me and like getting me to look at him. So it really distracted me. But he's fine. He was fine. It wasn't very long that he wasn't breathing, and it didn't affect him in any way. It didn't affect his brain in any way or anything like that, which I'm so, so grateful for. But, yeah, honestly, guys, from there on, everything was awesome. This story is getting really long, but my birth part of it was definitely the easiest, fastest part. And I did not have any, I didn't really have any like postpartum blues or anything like that. And life got a lot easier after I had my baby. And after my husband and I definitely went through some trials after that. Not in our marriage again, but with some outside sources, and everything works for the best, guys. If you're going through something hard in your life right now, I went through some rough things those first few years. I went, it was some rough stuff, and there were situations that I went through that I won't ever talk about. And you know, it all works out for the best. And I just want you guys to know that if you are 19 and pregnant, and I think something that I kind of want to relate to is if you're like happily married and happily taken care of, and you still feel unhappy that you're pregnant, it's okay, and it happens to other people. Because when I was pregnant at 19 and I felt like my life was over, part of the reason why I felt like such a bad mom is I felt like only teen moms that are like when you think of a teen mom, you think of a teenager who's pregnant without a support system, without a husband. You don't think of someone who is like happily married and is being fully supported and taken care of. And, you know, that's not really considered like a teen mom. But I think my story is important to share because I think there are probably definitely other moms out there who this is going to resonate with them, and they're going to be like, yeah, that's me right now. Like, I'm scared and I feel like I shouldn't be because I feel like I'm being supported. I'm being taken care of. I have a husband who's going to stick with me. So why would I be feeling upset or scared right now? But you know what, guys? I guess I want to say, like, it's okay to be scared, but also know it's going to work out for the best and it's going to be okay. And most importantly, you will be, and you are, an amazing mother, fully equipped to take care of this baby. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned through motherhood is that it doesn't matter if you're 19, it doesn't matter if you're 16, it doesn't matter if you're 30, and it doesn't matter if you're 60. Motherhood is a crazy journey that you are going to experience differently from every other mother in the world, because your husband, your family, your outside sources, your friends, your culture, your living situation, everything is going to affect your journey of motherhood differently. And don't think because of where you are right now that you're just going to be the worst mother, because that's what I thought. I thought, well, this baby wasn't planned. Well, I'm really dumb. Well, you know, I had all these insecurities. I'm not like, you know, I just had all these reasons that I was so sure would make me a horrible mother. And I want you to know that no matter what your situation is, you're not going to be a horrible mother. God is giving you this child, whether you believe in God or not, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you're in a different religion or not. God is giving you this baby because he knows you will be the best mother possible for this child. And you are going to make the best decisions possible for this child. And I genuinely believe that with all my heart. And I believe that whether or not you get an epidural, whether or not you get vaccinated, whether or not you are crunchy or not, no matter what decisions you make, this does not make you a bad mother. It makes you a good mother as long as obviously you're trying, you know, I mean, like, there are bad moms out there, obviously, but if you are trying your best for this child, and if you are putting your heart and soul into just trying to be a good mom, you will be a good mom, and you are a good mom. And even if those decisions don't turn out for the best, let's say you decided to make a certain medical choice or a certain food choice or a certain lifestyle choice, and then later on in life, you decide that wasn't the best, you know, you could have done better, you could have done things differently, and now you learn things differently. I still believe that that this child was given to you because God knew the decisions you were going to make, and that is going to affect your child for the best. Even if that decision wasn't the best decision, even if later you became better informed on a different choice, and that's the choice you make for the rest of your kids, and you feel like that would have been better. But you are an amazing mother. You were made for this child. Doesn't matter your circumstances. It doesn't matter how this baby came about to be. It doesn't matter if you have a loving supportive partner or not, if you're married or not. It doesn't matter the circumstances that the baby is coming into your life. You are not a bad mother. You are not a bad mother. And you're not a bad person, and you're not going to be a bad mother. You're going to be an amazing mother. And another thing I want to say is that this baby is not going to ruin your life. They're not going to end your life. And trust me, as a mom who now has a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, it goes by in the blink of an eye, literally goes by in the blink of an eye. And your life is not over. My life literally began after I had kids. And again, that just sounds corny, but it's true. My life began after I had kids. It changed me so much. I'm a different person than I was then. And I think that was the best thing. Like, I believe, because when I first got pregnant, I really thought God was punishing me. But in hindsight, he was blessing me. Because if I had waited until I was 25 to have kids, all these amazing life changes that happened and all these amazing personality changes and like the ways that I grew as a person, that wouldn't have happened until I was 25, but now I'm 23 and I've already learned and grown so much as a person. My personality is better. My friend group is better. We moved to Florida and our life is better. We've been living in Florida for 6 months now. That never would have happened if I hadn't gotten pregnant at 19. Some of the reasons that we moved to Florida, personal reasons that we don't really share with others, are because of that pregnancy at 19. And that sounds like it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't make sense unless you know our personal thoughts and thought process and the way we've lived our life. But everything that I have now, my businesses, my photography business, my life, my friends, our marriage, everything that we have right now that is so good and so amazing is because of that pregnancy at 19. Everything turned out for the best. Everything turned out for the better. And if you give your life to God, and if you're already a Christian, give your life fully to God. Let him use your life for the best possible position. Let him stretch you and grow you without being resentful towards him. He will change your life for the better. Because that was one of my biggest prayers while I was 19 and pregnant was, Lord, I don't understand this. I don't know why you're putting me through this trial, but I'm going to let you grow me to become a better person. I'm going to let you make me a good mom. Because, I wasn't even a mom yet. And I felt like I was a bad mom already. Like, I was a mom, but I wasn't parenting anyone or taking care of anyone yet. And I was already so sure I had failed. So guys, I think I'm going to end this here. It's been a really long video, so I need to stop somewhere, but I hope I got my message across a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that you are edified in some way by it. This is my constant prayer through my social media. I pray almost every day that the content I share will be edifying in some way. I hope that's how this video reached you and came across to you. I hope you feel uplifted, and I hope you guys have an awesome day. I love you so much. Bye.